Have you ever wondered why your grandparents' car felt more practical than yours? Those vent windows, those simple bench seats. Automakers quietly removed 30 genius features we desperately need back. Let's take a ride through automotive history. Have you ever sat in a brand new car surrounded by touchscreens and digital displays and thought to yourself, something's missing? You've got a backup camera, lane departure warnings, and enough computing power to launch a spacecraft, but you can't figure out how to turn on the air conditioning without scrolling through 3 menus. Meanwhile, your grandfather's 1965 Chevy had a knob. You turned it. Cold air came out. Revolutionary stuff. Here's the thing nobody wants to admit. Modern cars, for all their technological wizardry, have actually gotten worse in some pretty fundamental ways. And I'm not talking about subjective stuff like styling or the sound of a V8. I'm talking about practical, everyday features that made driving more convenient, more comfortable, and honestly, more enjoyable. Features that worked perfectly fine for decades until some accountant in a corporate boardroom decided they cost too much to include. See, there's this myth that automotive progress is always forward, that every new model year brings improvements across the board. But that's not how it works. What actually happens is automakers prioritize profit margins over user experience. They remove features that cost money to produce and replace them with software that costs almost nothing. They call it innovation. Your grandparents would call it something else entirely. Back in 1965, a base model Chevrolet Impala came standard with features that would cost you thousands in upgrades today. Vent windows, full-size spare tires, actual metal bumpers that could take a hit. And here's the kicker. The average family could afford that car on a single income, one paycheck. Try doing that with a loaded SUV today. The generation that grew up with those cars experienced what might have been peak practical automotive design, not the fastest cars, not the most powerful, but vehicles built by engineers who actually thought about how real people would use them every single day. Cars with ashtrays that worked as coin holders, glove boxes big enough to hold actual gloves, and door handles you could find in the dark. So today, we're counting down 30 old car features that your grandparents took for granted. Features that made perfect sense. Features that worked. Features that we desperately wish would come back. Some of these you'll remember fondly. Others you might never have even heard of. And that's the real tragedy here. How many of these features have you never even seen in person? Let us know in the comments as we go through the list, because I guarantee some of these are going to surprise you. Let's start our countdown with features number 30 through 25, the comfort and convenience features that made everyday driving a genuine pleasure. Number 30, vent windows. You know what nobody talks about anymore? The absolute genius of the vent window. That little triangular piece of glass in the corner of your door that pivoted open with a simple latch. Fisher Body patented this thing back in 1930, and it remained standard on virtually every American car until the late 1970s. Engineers called them the perfect ventilation solution, and honestly, they weren't exaggerating. See, the beauty of the vent window was that you could crack it open just a bit and direct a stream of fresh air exactly where you wanted it, right at your face on a hot day, toward your arm resting on the door, wherever you needed it. And here's the thing that made them truly brilliant. They created almost no wind noise at highway speeds, none of that buffeting roar you get when you roll down a modern window on the freeway, just smooth, quiet, targeted airflow. They cost virtually nothing to manufacture, they never broke, and they worked perfectly for nearly 50 years. Then air conditioning became standard, and automakers decided we didn't need them anymore. Except on those perfect spring days when you just want a little fresh air without running the AC, you absolutely do. Number 29, bench seats. Remember squeezing 3 kids across that front bench seat for road trips? Or sliding over next to your sweetheart at the drive-in? The bench seat was more than just a place to sit. It was a social experience. A full-width front bench could comfortably fit 3 adults across, which meant a standard sedan could carry 6 people without anyone feeling cramped. Your grandmother sat in the middle between your grandparents on Sunday drives to church. Your mom squeezed between her siblings on family vacations. The bench seat turned the front of the car into a shared space rather than 2 isolated cockpits. And that center position, it wasn't some punishment seat. It was often the best spot in the house because you could see everything through the windshield. Today's bucket seats with their massive center consoles might be sportier, but they've eliminated an entire seating position and turned every car into a 4-passenger vehicle at best. We traded community for cup holders. Number 28, column shifters. Speaking of that bench seat, you know what made it possible? The column shifter. That gear selector mounted right on the steering column, sometimes called 3 on the tree for manual transmissions. By moving the shifter up and off the floor, engineers freed up the entire space between the front seats. No tunnel, no console. Just open floor that let you slide from driver to passenger without climbing over anything. It made getting in and out easier too, especially for women in dresses or elderly passengers with limited mobility. You could enter from either side and scoot over to the driver's seat. The column shifter was elegant, practical, and completely taken for granted until it disappeared. Now we've got these enormous center consoles that could store a week's worth of groceries, and somehow we still don't have enough room. Number 27, floor-mounted dimmer switches. Here's one that'll really take you back. Your grandfather reaching down with his left foot to tap that dimmer switch without ever looking away from the road. The floor-mounted headlight dimmer was pure automotive brilliance. A simple button on the floorboard, usually near the left side of the footwell, that toggled between high beams and low beams with a quick tap of your foot. Your hands never left the wheel. Your eyes never left the road. It was muscle memory, pure and simple. Drivers could switch beams dozens of times on a dark country road without any conscious thought. Then someone decided it would be better to put that function on a stalk behind the steering wheel, and suddenly you're fumbling around trying to find the right switch while oncoming traffic blinds you. Progress isn't always forward. Number 26, full-size spare tires. Pop the trunk on your grandparents' car and you'd find a real spare tire. Not some skinny little space-saver donut with a 50-mile-per-hour speed limit and a warning label longer than a novel. A genuine full-size tire that matched the other 4 on the car. If you got a flat on a road trip, you changed it and kept driving at normal speed to your destination. No limping to the nearest tire shop, no anxiety about whether that temporary spare would hold up. Just swap it out and go. The full-size spare meant true self-sufficiency on the road, and it came standard on virtually every vehicle sold. Number 25, wing windows. Those wing windows worked hand in hand with vent windows to create perfect cabin ventilation without any air conditioning at all. You could fine-tune the airflow throughout the entire passenger compartment, keeping everyone comfortable on the hottest summer days. Those features made daily driving comfortable, but wait until you see what made maintenance and reliability so much simpler back then. Number 24, engine bays, with room to actually work. Pop the hood on a 1970 Chevrolet with a small block V8 and you'll find something that seems almost impossible by today's standards. Space. Actual, usable, glorious space. Mechanics from that era used to joke that you could sit on the fender and dangle your feet into the engine bay while you worked. And they weren't exaggerating. There was room to reach around components, room to swing a wrench, room to actually see what you were doing without a flashlight and a mirror on a stick. Compare that to a modern turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. These things are packed so tightly that replacing spark plugs, a job that used to take 15 minutes, can now require 3 hours of labor. You've got to remove intake manifolds, disconnect sensors, and sometimes even lift the engine just to access basic components. Your grandparents would have laughed at the idea of paying someone $200 to change spark plugs. They did it themselves in their driveway on a Saturday morning, probably with a cup of coffee in one hand. Number 23. Drain plugs on everything. Here's something that seems so obvious it's almost insulting that we lost it. Drain plugs. Simple, threaded plugs on radiators, transmissions, and differentials that let you drain fluids without removing hoses, dropping pans, or making a complete mess of your garage floor. Want to flush your cooling system? Unscrew the petcock at the bottom of the radiator. Done. And need to change your transmission fluid? There's a drain plug right there on the pan. Differential fluid? Same thing. These weren't fancy features. They were just common-sense engineering that acknowledged a basic truth. Fluids need to be changed, so let's make that easy. Today, many vehicles require you to remove entire components just to do basic fluid maintenance. Some transmissions are even marketed as sealed for life, which really just means sealed until it fails, and you replace the whole unit for $4,000. Number 22. Grease fittings. That extended component, life. Your grandfather had a grease gun and he used it regularly, not because he was some kind of automotive enthusiast, but because cars came with grease fittings on suspension components, steering linkages, and drive shaft U-joints. These little Zerk fittings, named after their inventor Oscar Zerk, were everywhere, and they served a beautiful purpose. Every few thousand miles, you'd pump fresh grease into these fittings, pushing out the old contaminated lubricant and extending the life of these components almost indefinitely. Ball joints that might last 50,000 miles today could go 200,000 miles or more with regular greasing. The parts were designed to be maintained, not replaced. Modern sealed components are marketed as maintenance-free, but that's really just code for non-serviceable. When they wear out, and they will wear out, you replace the entire assembly. What used to cost $5 in grease now costs $300 in parts and labor. Number 21. Timing. Marks you could actually see. Setting ignition. Timing used to be a basic driveway task. You'd hook up a timing light, look down at the harmonic balancer, and there they were. Clear timing marks visible right from above, no covers to remove, no special tools required. You could fine-tune your engine's performance in about 10 minutes. These marks were designed to be seen and used by regular people. The engineers who put them there expected owners to maintain their own vehicles. They made it easy on purpose. Today, timing is controlled by computers and sensors, which is more precise, sure, but it also means you can't adjust anything yourself. When something goes wrong, you're at the mercy of a dealer with a diagnostic computer. Number 20. User-replaceable bulbs and fuses. When was the last time you changed your own headlight bulb? In 1980, it took about 30 seconds and cost $2. You'd pop the hood, reach behind the headlight assembly, twist the bulb socket, pull it out, and push in a new one. Done. Today, some vehicles require you to remove the entire front bumper to access headlight bulbs. Others have LED assemblies that cost $800 and require dealer programming. Fuses used to be in an accessible box with a clear diagram showing what each one controlled. Now they're scattered across multiple locations, some requiring dashboard disassembly to reach. This wasn't about technology limitations, it was about design philosophy. Engineers used to design for serviceability. Now they design for assembly line efficiency and dealer revenue. Number 19. Parts that fit multiple years and models. Here's something that saved your grandparents serious money. Standardization. A carburetor from a 1972 Chevrolet would fit a 1978 model. Brake pads, alternators, starters, water pumps. These parts were shared across multiple years and even multiple vehicle lines. This meant parts were cheaper because manufacturers produced them in higher volumes. It meant junkyards were gold mines of compatible components. It meant you could keep a car running almost indefinitely because parts were always available. Today, manufacturers change part numbers constantly. A component from last year's model won't fit this year's version, even if the vehicles look identical. It's planned obsolescence disguised as innovation. Now that we've covered what made cars livable and fixable, let's talk about the safety features that actually worked better than their modern replacements. Have you ever tried to see around those massive A-pillars in a modern car at an intersection? You know what I'm talking about. You're at a stop sign, you lean forward, you lean back, you bob your head around like you're doing some kind of weird dance, and there's still a pedestrian or a cyclist hiding somewhere in that enormous blind spot. Your grandparents never had that problem, not even once. Number 18. Thin A-pillars. Back in the day, car designers understood something that seems to have been completely forgotten. You need to actually see where you're going. The A-pillars on classic cars were genuinely thin. We're talking maybe an inch or two of metal between you and a completely unobstructed view of the world. You could pull up to an intersection and see everything. Pedestrians, other cars, that kid on a bicycle who wasn't paying attention. The visibility was panoramic. It was like driving in a fishbowl, but in the best possible way. Modern cars have A-pillars that look like they belong on a tank. Sure, they're stronger in a rollover, but you can't avoid an accident you never saw coming in the first place. Your grandparents could see the whole world through their windshield. We're stuck playing peekaboo with structural steel. Number 17. Pop-up headlights. Now here's a feature that was equal parts practical and absolutely cool. The 1963 Corvette Stingray popularized hidden headlights, and they weren't just about looking sleek. Those headlights stayed protected during the day. No road debris scratching them up, no bugs caking onto the lenses, no sun damage fading the plastic. When you needed them, you hit a switch and they rose up like the car was waking up from a nap. By the 1990s, regulations effectively killed the design, even though owners loved them, and they caused zero documented safety issues. Zero. The government decided pedestrian safety was a concern, which is fair, but pop-up headlights weren't actually hurting anyone. They just looked too aggressive, apparently. Meanwhile, your grandparents got to drive around in cars that looked like they belonged in a spy movie. Number 16. Sealed beam headlights. Speaking of headlights, let's talk about sealed beams. These were standardized, cheap, and genuinely bright. Every car used the same basic headlight design, which meant you could walk into any auto parts store in America and get a replacement for a few bucks. They lasted forever, they were easy to install yourself, and they actually illuminated the road properly. Modern headlights are proprietary nightmares. Each manufacturer uses different designs, different bulbs, different housings. Replacing a headlight assembly today can cost hundreds of dollars and require removing half the front end of your car. Your grandparents just popped out the old sealed beam, popped in the new one, and drove away. The whole job took maybe 5 minutes. Number 15. Chrome bumpers that actually bumped. Here's something wild. Bumpers used to be designed to bump things. Revolutionary concept, right? And chrome bumpers on classic cars were mounted at a standardized height, which meant when you tapped another car in a parking lot, bumper met bumper. The chrome absorbed the impact, maybe got a small dent, and that was it. No cracked plastic, no sensors going haywire, no $1,000 repair bill. You could literally bump into things and drive away without drama. Modern bumpers are decorative plastic covers hiding expensive sensors and cameras. A 5-mile-per-hour parking lot tap can cost you $2,000 in repairs. Your grandparents just shrugged and kept shopping. Number 14. Rain gutters. This one seems so simple it's almost embarrassing that we got rid of it. Rain gutters were little channels that ran along the roofline of the car. When it rained, water flowed into these gutters and was channeled away from the windows and doors. You could open your door in a downpour and not get soaked. You could crack your window for fresh air and water wouldn't pour inside. Modern cars eliminated rain gutters for aerodynamics and styling, which means every time you open your door in the rain, you get a waterfall directly onto your seat. Progress, apparently. Number 13, hood ornaments. Before backup cameras and parking sensors, drivers had hood ornaments. These weren't just decorative. They served as reference points for judging exactly where your front corners were. You could see that ornament and know precisely how close you were to the car ahead or the curb beside you. Parking was intuitive because you had a visual guide right there on your hood. Now we rely on beeping sensors and tiny camera screens instead of just being able to see where our car actually ends. Speaking of things your grandparents took for granted, the next group of features made road trips and everyday driving genuinely enjoyable. Number 12. Opera windows. You know those little triangular windows that used to sit in the back pillars of luxury cars? The ones that made a Lincoln Continental or a Chrysler New Yorker look like it belonged parked outside a symphony hall? Those were opera windows, and they were absolutely everywhere in the 1970s and early 80s. Now here's the thing, they weren't just decorative. Well, okay, they were mostly decorative. But they served a real purpose, too. Those small windows let natural light flood into the back seat, making the interior feel more open and airy. Passengers sitting in the back didn't feel like they were trapped in a rolling cave. And from the outside, pure class. The opera window said something about the car and the person driving it. It whispered elegance. It suggested that maybe, just maybe, you were the kind of person who attended the opera, even if you'd never set foot in one. Cadillac had them. Lincoln had them. Even some Oldsmobiles got in on the action. They were trimmed in chrome or brushed metal, sometimes with little decorative crests. Today's cars have massive blind spots where those windows used to be. We traded visibility and style for slightly better aerodynamics and a whole lot of nothing to look at. Number 11. Landau vinyl roofs. Speaking of style that's completely vanished, let's talk about the Landau roof. That padded vinyl covering that made the top of your car look like it was wrapped in a fancy leather briefcase. These things were everywhere, and I mean everywhere. The Landau roof originated as a way to make hardtop cars look like convertibles with their tops up. But here's the secret that car manufacturers never really advertised. They also did a fantastic job of hiding rust. See, the roof seams on cars from that era were notorious for developing rust spots. Slap a vinyl covering over the whole thing, and suddenly that problem disappears, at least visually. Underneath, well, that was a different story, but nobody had to know. The look was undeniably classy, though, usually done in black or white vinyl, sometimes with a contrasting color to the body paint. They often featured those little Landau bars, those S-shaped chrome pieces on the C-pillar that referenced the folding mechanisms on old horse-drawn carriages. It was automotive fashion at its finest, impractical, prone to cracking and peeling after a few years in the sun, and absolutely gorgeous while it lasted. Number 10. Ashtrays everywhere. Open any door on a 1972 Buick and you'd find an ashtray. The front doors had them, the rear doors had them, the dashboard had a big one, the rear armrest had another. Some cars even had ashtrays built into the back of the front seats for rear passengers. We're talking 4, 5, sometimes 6 ashtrays in a single vehicle. Today, those same spots are either sealed over with plastic or converted into tiny storage compartments that can barely hold a pack of gum. And look, I'm not saying we should all start smoking in our cars again. That's not the point. The point is that automakers used to think about where people might want to put things. They anticipated needs. They built in solutions. Now we get cup holders, lots and lots of cup holders. But try finding a spot to put your loose change or your parking garage ticket or literally anything that isn't a beverage. Those ashtrays, whether you smoked or not, were genuinely useful little storage spaces that we just don't have anymore. Number 9. Cigarette lighters that actually worked. And while we're on the subject, remember when the cigarette lighter actually lit cigarettes? You'd push it in, wait for that satisfying click, and pull out a glowing orange coil that could light anything you needed. These weren't just smoking accessories, though. On cold winter mornings, people would push in that lighter and hold their fingers near the coil to warm up while waiting for the heater to kick in. It was a tiny portable heating element right there in your dashboard. Now we've got those same 12-volt ports, but they're just power outlets. No heating element, no satisfying click. Just a hole where you plug in your phone charger. Progress, I suppose. Number 8. Factory CB radio options. In 1977, over 40 million Americans had CB radios in their vehicles. 40 million. That's a nationwide communication network that existed decades before cell phones became common. Truckers used them to warn each other about speed traps and accidents. Families on road trips could talk to other travelers, get restaurant recommendations, find out about traffic jams miles ahead. Yeah, the handles and lingo became a cultural phenomenon. Breaker, breaker, good buddy, 10-4. What's your 20? This wasn't just trucker talk. Regular people, suburban moms, teenagers, everyone got in on it. Car manufacturers noticed and started offering factory-installed CB radio options, proper antenna mounts, dedicated speaker locations. It was social media before social media existed, connecting strangers on the highway through nothing but radio waves and shared adventure. Number 7. Map pockets and proper storage. Ever tried to fit a modern road atlas in your car's center console? Good luck. Your grandparents had dedicated map pockets that could hold an entire Rand McNally collection. Door panels featured deep pockets specifically designed for folded maps. Our glove boxes were actually sized to hold gloves and maps and registration documents and a flashlight. Today's glove boxes can barely fit the owner's manual. We're getting close to the top features now, and these last ones might genuinely surprise you with how much we've actually regressed. Number 6. Hand crank windows. You know what never needed a software update? A hand crank window. You know what never stopped working because a fuse blew or a motor burned out? A hand crank window. These beautifully simple mechanisms were pure mechanical genius. You turned the handle, the window went down. You turned it the other way, the window went up. That was it. No electronics, no wiring harness, no expensive repairs. And here's the thing that really gets me. Those hand crank windows lasted the entire life of the car. I'm talking 300,000 miles and the window still worked perfectly. Meanwhile, modern power windows start making that grinding noise after about 5 years, and suddenly you're looking at a $200 repair bill just to roll down your driver's side window. The regulator fails, the motor dies, the switch goes bad. So many points of failure in a system that used to have exactly 0. There was also something satisfying about cranking down your window. It was physical. It was real. You were actually doing something. Now we tap a button and wait for a motor to do the work for us. Progress, I guess? Number 5. Physical buttons and knobs. Remember when you could adjust your air conditioning without taking your eyes off the road? I remember when changing the radio station didn't require navigating through 3 menu screens. Physical buttons and knobs were everywhere in older cars, and they were absolutely wonderful. You could reach over, feel for the temperature dial, and adjust it by touch alone. Your fingers knew exactly where everything was. The volume knob was always in the same spot. The fan speed slider moved with satisfying clicks. Everything was intuitive and immediate. Now we've got these massive touchscreens that require you to look at them, tap precisely in the right spot, sometimes swipe through menus, all while you're supposed to be driving. Studies have actually shown that these infotainment systems are more distracting than texting, but hey, they look futuristic, so that's what matters apparently. The worst part is when the touchscreen glitches or freezes. Suddenly you can't adjust anything. With physical controls, that simply never happened. Number 4. Audio systems that actually played your music, cassette decks, 8-track players, even early CD changers. These audio systems had one job, and they did it without asking for your credit card information or requiring a monthly subscription. You bought your music once, you owned it forever. You could play it whenever you wanted. No internet connection required. No wondering if your favorite album would suddenly disappear from the streaming service. No ads interrupting your road trip playlist unless you were listening to the radio by choice. And those systems were built to last. I've seen cassette players from the 1970s that still work perfectly today. Try finding a modern infotainment system that'll last 50 years. Good luck with that. The aux input was the perfect bridge between old and new. Plug in whatever device you wanted, play whatever you owned. Simple, elegant, no subscriptions necessary. Number 3. External hood releases. This one might seem small, but it mattered. Older cars had hood releases right there in the grille. Anyone could pop your hood from outside the vehicle. Why was this important? Because when your battery died in a parking lot, any good Samaritan could help you get a jump start without you having to figure out how to unlock your car with a dead battery. Modern cars hide the hood release inside the cabin. Great for security, terrible for practicality. Your battery dies, your doors won't unlock electronically, and now you're stuck trying to find the manual key slot that's hidden somewhere you've never noticed before. Number 2. Metal ignition keys. A metal key cost about $2 to copy at any hardware store. $2. You could have 5 spares made and keep them everywhere, in your wallet, in your desk, with a neighbor, under a magnetic box on the frame. Modern key fobs cost anywhere from $200 to $500 to replace. They have to be programmed by the dealer. You can't just run to the hardware store anymore, lose your only key fob, and you might be looking at a tow truck and a very expensive visit to the dealership. And number 1, cars that working families could actually afford. This is the big one. In 1970, the average new car cost $3,500. That was about 4 months of median household income. 4 months. You could save up, walk into a dealership, and drive home in something brand new. Today, the average new car costs over $48,000. That represents nearly 9 months of median household income. Cars have literally become twice as expensive relative to what we earn. Think about it. Your grandparents could buy a brand new car with 4 months' salary. How many months would it take you? Base model cars used to be genuinely basic and genuinely affordable. Working families could buy new vehicles. That's not a reality for most people anymore, and that might be the biggest loss of all. And that brings us to the end of our journey through automotive features past. And there you have it. 30 features from your grandparents' cars that honestly make you wonder if progress always means improvement. Look, we're not saying everything was better back then. Air conditioning that actually works, fuel injection, and crumple zones are genuine upgrades we should all be thankful for. But somewhere along the way, we traded simplicity for complexity, character for uniformity, and genuine craftsmanship for planned obsolescence. Your grandparents didn't need a software update to roll down their windows. They didn't need to navigate through 17 menus just to change the temperature. They had vent windows that actually worked, ashtrays that doubled as coin holders, and hood ornaments that told you exactly what kind of car was coming down the street. They had bench seats perfect for Sunday drives and wing windows perfect for summer nights. The thing is, these features weren't just functional, they were thoughtful. Someone actually sat down and asked, "What do people need?" And then they built it. No subscription required, no touchscreen necessary, just good old-fashioned engineering with a healthy dose of common sense. So, which of these 30 features do you miss the most? And which one did we forget? Because we know there's something out there that made your grandpa's Buick special that we didn't even mention. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We genuinely want to hear your stories. If you enjoyed this trip down automotive memory lane, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. We've got plenty more nostalgia coming your way. including maybe a video about car features that should absolutely never come back. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.